If BuzzFeed was going to label me as a chocolate chip muffin instead of a blueberry muffin, will that add value to my life? Hello and welcome to another episode of Challenge Your Mindset. I'm your host, Noura. And a couple of weeks ago, I had made plans to meet up with a friend and grab dinner. Now, when the day that we were supposed to grab dinner came, I had a particularly long day at work. It was super busy. I was all talked out. And quite frankly, I didn't necessarily want to have dinner with another individual where I had to socialize because I was all socialized out for the day. Anyways, a few hours before we were scheduled to have dinner, she texted me, "Hey, I'm so sorry, but unfortunately I won't be able to make dinner tonight. Do you mind if we reschedule for later this week or early next week?" And quite frankly, I felt so happy that I didn't have to actually go on after such a busy day at work and socialize with someone else. So I texted her back, "You know what? No worries. Don't worry about it. We could reschedule for another time next week. Just let me know what date and time, and I'll let you know if I can make it." And that was that. And we rescheduled, and we eventually had dinner together. Now, I want you to remember the way that she had responded. She had said to reschedule it. So recently, I had learned about this matrix called the Eisenhower Matrix, and it's supposed to help you with time management. And I'll post it onto my Instagram so you could take a look at it when you get the chance at Noura_unplugged. That's NORA_unplugged. So it's called the Eisenhower Matrix. And essentially, I found it to be especially helpful in high stress moments. So when I feel overwhelmed or that I have a lot of things to do and I have a lot to wrap my brain around, I kind of like to take 2 steps back and draw this square. And so let me walk you through it. So you draw a big square, and then you draw a line down the middle from top to bottom, and another line down the middle from one side to the other, from left to right. So now you have 4 little squares in a big square. And across the top, you're going to label on the left-hand side, it's going to be called urgent. And on the right-hand side, it's going to be called not urgent. Now, moving over to the left-hand side, by the top box, you're going to write important, and by the bottom box, you're going to write not important. And so we have categories: urgent, important, not urgent, important, urgent, not important, and not urgent, not important. Now that we have our matrix labeled, let's dive into the little boxes. So across the top box, the one that's labeled urgent, important, I'm going to refer to it as box number 1, the one right by it where it's not urgent, important. I'm going to refer to it as box 2, and the bottom 2 are labeled as 3 and 4 respectively. In box 1, this is where you list everything that's urgent and important. So everything that has to be done. For example, you have a presentation that's due tomorrow, and you have a few important emails that you need to respond to. Those are things that are urgent and important, and so they would be placed in that box. In box 2, you would list things that are important but not urgent. So these are things that you would plan to do. You list them out and then you schedule them and put dates on these items. So this is your schedule box. An example would be going to the gym regularly, right? So instead of stressing about going to the gym today and right now, when you have a presentation due tomorrow, you would schedule it for Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 7 to 8 p.m. Or if you really want to read this book, but your week seems to be packed, you can schedule that to Sunday evening at 6 p.m. Okay, so moving on to box 3. These are things that are not important, but are urgent. You can delegate these items. So how can you delegate these items? Let me give you an example. So you have bills to pay. Bills are urgent, right? But they're not necessarily important, meaning that you can get something else or someone else to do them for you. So if you need to get your bills paid, you can automate those payments so you don't have to worry about them on a day-to-day basis. And last but not least, in box 4, these are things that are not important and not urgent. So these are things that could be deleted, eliminated, out of sight, out of mind. You don't have to worry about it anymore. So an example of this would be reading a BuzzFeed article about who wore it best. It won't add to your day or to your life if you know that Kelsey from Michigan thinks that Ariana wore the dress better than Selena Gomez. It genuinely just won't. So this is not meant to run your life on the clock, but rather keep your life in order and help mitigate incoming stress. Everybody has the same amount of time in a day, in a week, in a month, in a year, and so on and so forth. So let's break it down. There are 24 hours in a day and 7 days in a week. There's a total of 168 hours in a week, just 24 times 7, right? And let's say you have a relatively healthy sleeping schedule and you sleep about 8 hours every night. That's a total of 56 hours of sleeping time, which means you have 112 hours where you are awake. So let's break it down a little further and say you eat 3 meals a day and it takes you about 1 hour to consume each meal, including a bit of meal prep. Then that's 21 hours in a week, which leaves us with 91 hours left in our week to do everything else. Actually, side note about the eating, it's better to eat slower than to eat quickly, which is why I said an hour and kind of squeezed in there a bit of meal prep, but it's actually better to eat slowly than to eat quickly. According to Dr. Leslie Heimberg, the section head for psychology in Cleveland Clinic's Center for Behavioral Health Department of Psychiatry and Psychology and director of behavioral services for the Bariatric and Metabolic Institute, says people should take more than 20 minutes to eat a meal, ideally about 30 minutes, so that you can have an opportunity for your brain to catch up with your stomach. So it takes the brain about 20 minutes to shut off the urge to eat. I'll link the article in my show notes if you're interested in reading it. But let's get back to the 91 hours. So now you have 91 hours where you can do anything you please that does not include sleeping, like the necessary amount of sleep that your body needs, and the time that it takes you to consume some food. So this includes schoolwork, classes, homework, working at your job, scrolling through social media, watching YouTube videos, hanging out with friends and family, and the list goes on. What do you choose to spend your time on? Do you scroll through TikTok or Instagram for some time every day? I know on iPhones, and I'm not sure about other phones, but I know for sure on iPhones, you could go into your settings and check your screen time. It breaks it down to how many minutes you spent on each app on any given day. And go ahead and check yours out and see how much time you could get back in your day if you set limits on each of those apps. So on the iPhone, again, you could set a time limit on an app, and so it gives you a notification before your time is up for that day. So let's say you put an hour limit on Instagram. 5 minutes before your time is up for the day, it's going to give you a notification letting you know that you only have 5 minutes left on the app. And then when the time is up, it'll ask you if you would like to add a minute, 15 minutes, or delete the time limit for that day. And it's interesting because it actually reminds you. And so you are mentally aware of the time that you have spent on that app for that day. And so you can ask yourself, has that helped me in any way, shape, or form? Has it improved my life? And the answers could be yes, it could be no. You know, it could have relieved some stress that you were feeling, and so now you feel a little happier and more motivated to go and do the work that you have to get done. Or it was just a time suck. So go ahead. Check yours out and see how much time you could get back in your day if you could cut out your social media consumption or whatever other apps that you tend to go on that don't really add value to your day. So now that we understand that everybody has the same number of hours in a day, the same number of days in a week, let's go back to the Eisenhower Matrix and talk about my friend's response to her not being able to make it to dinner. She said, "I'm sorry to bail on you right now, but I won't be able to make it to dinner. Can we reschedule for later this week or early next week?" And so to me, that indicated that this dinner to her is a box 2 item because she had chosen to tell me that we can reschedule. And rescheduling something or scheduling something in general is considered a box 2 item, meaning that it's not urgent, but it is important. So this dinner to her is important. Her spending time with me is important to her, but it's not urgent right now. She might have something else that requires more attention, and therefore this dinner is not a priority. On the other hand, if she would have messaged me, "Hey, I'm sorry to bail, but I won't be able to make it to dinner tonight," without saying that she would like to reschedule, then I know that this dinner is a box 4 item, meaning it is not urgent and not important and therefore can be eliminated. And it's really interesting kind of looking at interactions with people from this perspective of, is it urgent or important to them? Not really questioning your relationship, but rather the time that they spend with you and what that means to them, right? So I just found that to be interesting. All right, so let's say you actually use the Eisenhower Matrix. Now that you have all these items in place, You can now conquer your life. And you might even notice that you have a bit of extra time in your week to do things that you wanted to do, like grab a coffee with a friend or catch up on that show or movie that you wanted to watch. If you spend about 40 to 50 hours on work or school in a week, you still have another 40 or 50 hours to use as you please. So try to eliminate those distractions and set time limits on your phone on apps that may be a time suck. Do things with your time that can add value to you and or to others. If you want to get to know a person, ask them about their time. Where do they spend their time? What do they do with their free time? This week's mindset challenge is, instead of saying or thinking, I don't have time to do X, Y, or Z, replace it with X, Y, and Z are currently not a priority. Shifting that sentence allows you to reassess what you believe is a priority or not. Time is a non-renewable resource. As Jim Rohn said, time is more valuable than money. You can get more money, but you can never get more time. When someone chooses to spend time with you, view it as a gift because they can never get that time back. You to them are more important than money. Doing community service, for example, means that the volunteer values the success of their community more than money because they chose to provide a service for free. We're all given the same amount of time in a day. Choose wisely what you do with yours. Spending time learning various skill sets can help you have a wildly different future than the one you see currently. If we take a moment and look at it from a geometric perspective, if you wanted to go from point A to point B, however, you shifted your direction 2 degrees north from point A. So you're standing on point A and you shifted from the direction of point B 2 degrees north. I'm going to ask you a pretty simple question. Do you think you're going to end up at point B? The simple answer is no. You won't be ending up at point B. The more you walk away from point A, the further you get away from point B, just by doing a simple 2-degree shift north. Similarly, instead of you spending an hour on your phone every day and limit it to 30 minutes every day, and you take those other 30 minutes that used to be spent on your phone and instead use it to learn a new language or to read a book about economics and actually implement what you learn, you will have a vastly different outcome than what you are doing right now by sitting and scrolling through your phone and spending time on things that might not actually add value. So next time you decide to take a BuzzFeed quiz, think twice and maybe even ask yourself, if BuzzFeed was going to label me as a chocolate chip muffin instead of a blueberry muffin, will that add value to my life? I believe in your ability to take your life into your own hands and recalibrate it. Do you? This is all I have for you for this week's episode. Thank you so much for tuning into another episode of Challenge Your Mindset. Follow this podcast wherever you may cast your pods by hitting that plus button. You could also follow us on Instagram at Noura_unplugged. That's Noura, Nora_unplugged. Thanks again for tuning in. I hope you have a fabulous day and an even better week, and I will see you next week.